Hey guys, All in Crypto here, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for another YouTube video. Hopefully you've all had a triumphant Tuesday. Today we're going to be diving, and it brings me great excitement to be diving into Cardano ADA. It's been a little while. We like to keep you up to date at least weekly. We've had, and we've been in constant talks with many of the projects building on top of Cardano. And this is a blockchain that just fills me with so much excitement. When I think about the future and the role that I believe cryptocurrency is going to play in it, Cardano is going to be very much a part of that. And that's why I actually don't mind prices going lower. And we're going to talk about that. So what we're going to do in this video, I'll very quickly outline it all for you. We're going to be diving into ADA. We're going to be dropping down the time frames. We'll start off with a monthly and maybe get down to the daily, talking about where we are and where we're potentially going. Really reiterating our bias that, I still think this market sees downside. I think Bitcoin is going down to at least 24K, at least, ladies and gentlemen. Doesn't have to happen overnight. Doesn't mean we can't see rallies to the upside. But given the environment we're in, that's my stance on Bitcoin. And of course, Bitcoin is still that tide that rises and sinks all ships, and is going to drag Cardano and the altcoin market with it. And that's just the situation that we're in, guys. There's no point in sugarcoating it. However, that situation fills me with absolute excitement because I'm going to get the opportunity to accumulate an altcoin, a layer one blockchain that I think is not only here to stay, but is going to absolutely shine in this industry. We haven't sold any Cardano to date. It's one of the few altcoins that we've not gotten out of. And the reason being is because when I really think about the next 5 years, I'm a happy hodler, ladies and gentlemen. And when these prices do eventually come lower, like I think they are going to, I'm going to be a happy accumulator leading into the direction I believe Cardano is going long term. So we're going to look at Cardano. We'll look at Bitcoin, sort of reiterate our bias. And we haven't really been giving daily updates on ADA, just simply because we want to give these updates when we have something to say. And we are going to start diving into many of the DeFi projects building on top of the Cardano blockchain because they fill me with absolute excitement. It's kind of like me looking at DeFi and dApps that were coming out of Ethereum in the early days that were met with huge skepticism. And then, watching them really take hold and do absolutely amazing things and of course, appreciating value. That's a similar thing is going to happen for ADA and its ecosystem, in my opinion. We're also going to talk about, relating to the price. Cardano isn't moving off of its own fundamentals. The price isn't correlated to Cardano and its development and its progress. Because if it was, we'd have way higher prices. The price is really correlating. It's why we focus so much on the macro view. And of course, Bitcoin, the price is correlated to that. It's correlated to the conditions of the market, not Cardano as a layer one blockchain, because it is absolutely excelling. We've never been in such a good position, ladies and gentlemen. I still use and farm DeFi protocols on the Cardano blockchain, mainly actually to get tokens for many of these dApps launching on top of ADA that I think are going to have a bright future. If I think Cardano is going to do very well into the future over the next couple of years or 5 years, its ecosystem is likely to go with it. So we'll get into it. We're not going to waste any more time. We know what the market's doing, guys. And we do give you daily cryptocurrency market updates when we talk about that. This is the monthly chart for ADA, and we are in a downtrend, ladies and gentlemen. And we had an accelerant run. And to not expect any kind of a pullback from that, 16,408% from the lows in March. What we are currently going through is an expansion and a retraction. And that's supported and really driven by the macro outlook. Certainly, if we look at Bitcoin, for example, March 2020 saw huge liquidity thrown into markets up until, the sort of top, and the Fed decided that they now want to take that really supportive monetary conditions and flip them into a very regressive one. To tackle inflation is the narrative that they're going by. And that's why they're doing what they're doing. That is bringing down markets. And that's where Cardano finds itself swept up in. So markets across the board, talking about Bitcoin very quickly, I believe are coming down to the long-term regression bands here. Apologies, guys. We've got all our draws from sort of intraday trades. And also you've got the 200 moving average down here. That is where I believe we are heading, guys. That was the 50 moving average. This is the 200 down here on the weekly. This is where I think we're heading. So if that happens, Cardano is going to go with it. And that's just the market conditions that we're in. That is no reflection of Cardano as a project. And because we haven't been doing daily cryptocurrency market updates on Cardano, it leads people to think that I may have given up on it. On the contrary, in fact, I'm getting very excited to accumulate an altcoin that I believe in at lower prices. Because I do think, if I think Bitcoin's going lower, Cardano is going to do a similar thing. And there's many people saying, okay, we've got the Vasil hard fork. So smooth, these hard forks, by the way, guys. Certainly when you compare them with other blockchains that usually have all sorts of problems around them. You know, Cardano is very efficient at what it does and very efficient actually at evolving. So, you know, one of the big questions at the moment is, do we see a run up to the hard fork like we have previously? You know, we had three prior hard forks, which were the all-time highs around the Alonso hard fork, and then obviously sold off after that. Those hard forks all occurred in a runaway bull market. So I think you're going to have a lesser effect in this one, because we've said, again at the start of the video, and I'll reiterate it now, that the price is not driven off Cardano's fundamentals. And to really highlight that, Cardano adds over 2,000 new wallets daily in a month despite market volatility. The blockchain is going from strength to strength. This is the Pluto scripts here, which is to do with smart contracts. Up and to the right. Every other metric is suggestive of that and supportive of that. And it's just doing, you know, if we look at total number of transactions, the blockchain is going from strength to strength, and the price just does not reflect that. It reflects the market conditions, something you've got to understand as a ADA holder, and this will pivot and return. We've spoken to you about boom and bust cycles. This was a boom cycle. You're going to have a bust, boom, bust, and then we go on to make that next leg higher, and things rinse and repeat. You know, this market will recover. You have all the same actors here. Whenever there's a downtrend saying that crypto's dead and it's going nowhere, that is simply not the case, ladies and gentlemen. And it's been our bias since we started in the cryptocurrency markets, what kept me around in 2018, that this tech is nowhere near its potential. It's got such a long way to go. We are on the cusp, ladies and gentlemen, of a technological revolution in the same way that previous revolutions, tech revolutions, have changed the world. Blockchain is going to do a similar thing. If you look at your mobile, that came from the PC revolution, really. If you look at what we're communicating on now over the internet, that was also a technological revolution. You probably drive a car to work. That was a revolution. Blockchain is very similar in how it's going to integrate itself into our daily lives seamlessly, and in many cases without us even knowing. So it's a very, very exciting space to be in still, despite the market action. So let's get into Cardano off its own fundamentals. Now we spoke about the macro. So if we think things are coming lower, where do we look to position? Where are we looking to accumulate? Well, one thing that you want to aim for is prior levels of consolidation. So we have one here that we bounced off. If we go down a little bit further, you can see one here, which will be a big one, I think, to bounce off if we get there, ladies and gentlemen. Now, markets don't just go straight down in a kind of bear market scenario. Now, I don't think this is going to be a 2008, 2019 kind of bear market. I actually think that this market will pick itself up a lot sooner, given the fact that, you know, 2018, 2019 were very much driven by the halvenings. So Bitcoin has followed a 4-year cycle theory. You can see it's clear as day that it's centered around the halvenings. That happens round about here and round about here. And that's what leads to huge expansion and then a retraction that's typically 2 years, you know, 2-year bull market, 2-year bear market, that kind of thing. This downtrend is really caused by monetary policy, which cannot go on for a 2-year period, in my opinion, because there will be nothing left of the economy and certainly nothing left of the stock market. So they are going to have to retract the conditions that the markets are currently under at some point, but that isn't yet. So we have to ride this out, and largely when we don't even really look massively at price, we look at the conditions that dictate the price, more so on the macro. So we've hit this level here. Is this a possibility? And what level is that, by the way, guys? 16 cents. Can we come down to 16 cents? I don't think it's very probable, but is it possible? Absolutely. Certainly if Bitcoin tumbles, it's going to drag the rest of the market with it. Now, there are some saving graces for Cardano because we have such a great hodl rate. Lots of people that are in Cardano are hodlers. That's their position. And if we look at total Cardano state, I think it's around about 73, 74% at the moment. You know, there's a lot of very zealous ADA holders. One reason I love this blockchain so much is because it has a fantastic community, very creative and you know, inspiring in many ways, certainly when you look at other blockchain communities out there. So I definitely think that we come down and take this wick eventually. Doesn't mean we can't do something like this before we get that retracement, and this could be the Vasil hard fork and the hype around it. And then we get that retracement, and then we sort of bottom out somewhere. But calling a bottom in these markets, and if we look at that off the log scale, it very much mimics this. This is what we're anticipating, guys, before we see that next leg. We need to see a clear bottom, and this, as it currently stands, is not that clear bottom that I think people are looking for. That is not a bottoming indicator, in my opinion, or a bottoming kind of fractal, in my opinion. And of course, if we think Bitcoin's going lower, to reiterate, ADA's likely going with it. If we drop down to the 3 daily, you can see you've just had your death cross there. You would have had one prior in 2017. This is something as well that a lot of people don't realize with ADA. It's a very new blockchain. It's only really hit the market in 2017. It had been developed and worked on prior. And we know the history of Charles. You know, he came over from Ethereum, had a different vision to Vitalik. And of course, that has played out. And it's a huge success, by the way. I mean, people don't even understand that, for example, Polkadot, they actually somewhat use Ouroboros, which is our consensus mechanism that runs the proof of stake mechanism that runs the blockchain and produces the blocks. You know, it's a very successful and deserves a lot more respect than I think it currently has. But if we look to the daily, you know, you can see here, guys, you know, you've had this cross. It's very, switch it back to the weekly quickly. Talking about EMAs, which aren't the be all and end all. Certainly if you look at your 50, below it, you're in a downtrend. Above it, holding above it, you're in an uptrend. And this, I think, is going to be a downtrend until it isn't. And I think the isn't part of it comes with monetary policy. And it's a very weird predicament, like I say, that I find myself in the fact that, you know, I'm actually not bothered in the slightest, even as a Cardano holder with a significant amount of ADA, if the price does go lower. Because this has always been a long-term play for me. And ultimately, I do think ADA recovers. I do think the cryptocurrency market recovers. And I do think ADA plays a huge role in the cryptocurrency space. It's consistently been a top 10 crypto. It hasn't faded away. And in actual fact, continues to excel. And when I think of a layer 1 blockchain that I'm happy to use, Cardano really is it. It's very easy to use. It's cheap. Yes, we know it's not the fastest blockchain at the moment, but there is a clear roadmap for scaling, unlike many of the cryptocurrencies. And it's just got such a lot going on with it. I mean, the DeFi space really fills me with excitement. So to recap on levels that we're looking at, I think you're going to come back down to here. We could see some sort of a rally, but it's ultimately dependent on the overall market. And I think failing that, you could be looking at somewhere like here. Let's actually switch down to the daily, see if there's any more areas of consolidation. Yeah, somewhere around here is potentially where I will be looking to scale into Cardano. Because the logic for this is if Bitcoin starts to slide, which I think it's going to, I think we're definitely going to get to that sort of 24K range. Doesn't have to happen. We could see something drastically change, and we will update you if that is the case. But if we do see further downside for Bitcoin, you know, this is what we're looking at for ADA, in my opinion. This is the accumulation range that I am somewhat anticipating and will be taking full advantage of, given my belief in Cardano. You know, it's not going anywhere, guys. And the people out there that always show up, trash talking ADA, they're always going to be here, by the way. It doesn't matter how. We could be a top 1 crypto and they'd still show up. Or we could be one of one for the top spot in crypto, they'd still show up. You know, the price right now really is reflective of the macro environment and really Bitcoin. But there is so much going on, like I say, you know, and if you look at the on-chain fundamentals for Cardano, it's never been so strong and in such a good position. Price just doesn't reflect that, and that's the kind of environment that we're in, guys, and we got to deal with it accordingly. If you look at DeFi, actually compare Cardano's DeFi in terms of percentages lost to many others, it's actually held up relatively well. But then again, you could argue we never really had a lot of TVL in there to start with, just because of how early we are in it. And when I look at Cardano's DeFi and the projects building on it, again, I get flashbacks to Ethereum in the early days when it started releasing dApps, and there was huge skepticism, you know, surrounding them. And now they've all gone on to do very well, and of course have sold off since that kind of ETH summer or DeFi summer expansion. So that is really all I've got for you. It was just an update, to be honest. We are going to, and please watch out for more Cardano videos on individual projects that are building. We want to cover Cardano again, ADA Finance. We want to dive back into JED, mainly so that we can sort of point out the differences between UST and JED. UST wasn't a very collateralized blockchain. I think JED's collateralization rate is nearly 400%. and a few other things. You know, there's so many great projects, even a lot of the dexes. We covered Wing Riders. We actually had Karen from the Wing Riders team on. That was a great interview, great team, great chap, and lots of amazing things taking place. So that's really all I've got for you in this video. If you've enjoyed this content, a like is always appreciated. So as a comment, quick shout out to my stake pool. ALLIN is the ticker. We're minting blocks every single epoch now, guys. And I don't say this enough, but it's a huge honor for me to be a stake pool operator within this ecosystem that I care so much about. All I've got for you in this one, guys. Stay tuned for more updates. Again, if you've enjoyed the content, like is always appreciated. So as a comment, and I'll catch you all in the next YouTube video.